What would you think if I told you that the man who sees you as a goddess isn't really seeing you at all? That the man who places you on a pedestal is not worshipping your true, complex, and deeply human self, but is, in fact, bowing down to a phantom, a ghost of his own making. He's not in love with you, he's in love with a dream, a projection of his own unconscious. He's projecting his own anima onto you, the female half of his soul that he has never truly integrated. He's not in a relationship with you, he's in a relationship with himself, using you as the screen upon which he casts his unlived life, his unfulfilled desires, and his suppressed feminine energy. This is the central tragedy of modern relationships, the profound inability to see one another for who we truly are. Instead, we are forever trapped in a hall of mirrors, each reflecting a distorted image of the other, a funhouse of archetypes and shadows. He sees you as the mother, the goddess, the maiden, or the whore, but he never sees the woman, the unique individual, standing right in front of him. And in this process, he denies you your full humanity. He denies your flaws, your anger, your imperfections. He denies the very things that make you real, because they don't fit into the perfect, polished narrative he has created for you. When a man sees a woman this way, he is not just admiring her, he is abdicating his own responsibility to individuate. He is offloading the immense and terrifying task of meeting his own shadow onto another person. He expects you to carry the weight of his emotional baggage, his unhealed wounds, his lost potential. The moment you fail to live up to this impossible standard, the moment the goddess becomes a woman, the pedestal crumbles. The infatuation turns to rage, to resentment, to a cold, bitter disappointment. The mask slips, and the fragile, unintegrated ego of the boy is exposed. He despises you not because of anything you have done, but because you have dared to shatter his illusion. You have forced him to confront the truth. The goddess was never real, and his own soul remains unintegrated. This is not a condemnation of his weakness, but an invitation to your strength. This is not about blaming him for his inability to see you. It is about empowering you to see yourself. The great Stoic philosophers, Seneca and Marcus Aurelius, knew this truth in their bones. They taught that true freedom comes from within, from an unshakable inner fortress that is impervious to the praise or the scorn of others. They understood that external validation is a fickle, unreliable mistress, and that to place your worth in the hands of another is to become a slave. And in this context, when a man projects his fantasy onto you, he is offering you a gilded cage. He is not setting you free, he is binding you to his dream, his needs, his fragile ego. Your task is not to fulfill his fantasy. Your task is to become the woman you were always meant to be, to embrace your own wholeness, your own light, and your own shadow. To do the deep, difficult work of individuation for yourself. This is the ultimate act of self-love and self-respect. It's the quiet, unwavering power of knowing who you are, independent of anyone else's gaze, anyone else's expectations, anyone else's projections. It is the kind of power that does not need to be validated or affirmed. It simply exists, like a mountain or the sea, unbothered by the storms that rage around it. It is the power of a woman who has become a woman for herself, not for a man. It is a power that men can only stand in awe of, and yet, paradoxically, a power that frightens those who are not ready to face their own truth. Because your wholeness forces them to confront their own fragmentation, and in that confrontation lies the potential for real, authentic connection, but only if they are brave enough to enter into it. And yet, this dynamic is not solely his creation. It is a dance, a subconscious tango, where your own wounds and unintegrated parts play a crucial role. Just as he projects his idealized anima onto you, you, in turn, may be projecting your idealized animus, the masculine half of your own soul, onto him. You are not seeing the man in front of you, but the rescuer, the hero, the savior, the one who will finally make you feel whole, worthy, and safe. You are, in essence, seeking external validation for your own incompleteness, a desire that mirrors his own. This is the tragic feedback loop of emotional codependency, a fortress built not on love, but on mutual need and the avoidance of profound inner work. He gives you the adulation you crave, the validation you feel you lack. He makes you feel seen, but only in the narrow, restrictive way that serves his fantasy. And you, in turn, Give him the admiration he needs to prop up his fragile ego, to avoid the terrifying confrontation with his own shadow. You become the perfect mirror for his self-delusion, and he, the perfect vessel for your unlived fairy tale. The moment one of you steps out of character, the entire house of cards begins to tremble. You are not two individuals connecting, you are two fragmented souls desperately trying to complete themselves by using the other as a crutch. This is not a judgment, but an observation of a psychological reality that plays out in countless relationships. The path to breaking this cycle lies in the painful, yet ultimately liberating, process of shadow work. His shadow is the unintegrated part of his psyche, his weakness, his fear, his insecurity, his repressed femininity. Your shadow is the part of you that you have rejected: your anger, your aggression, your selfishness, your true, untamed wildness. Both of you must individually face the darkness you have hidden from yourselves and from the world. He must learn to integrate his shadow, to own his weakness, and to stop projecting it onto women. He must learn to see them not as goddesses or whores, but as human beings, whole and complex. You, in turn, must do the same. You must stop seeking external validation and begin the terrifying, yet empowering, journey of validating yourself. This is the core of individuation, the psychological process of becoming a fully integrated, whole individual. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus taught that we should focus only on what is within our control. The actions, thoughts, and feelings of another person are not within our control. Their projections are not within our control, but our response to them, our own inner state, our own self-worth, these things are entirely within our dominion. You cannot force him to see you, but you can choose to see yourself. You can choose to detach from the outcome of his fantasy and attach instead to the truth of your own being. This is the ultimate act of emotional freedom. It is the recognition that his opinion of you says nothing about your value and everything about his psychological state. It is the quiet, fierce strength of a woman who knows she does not need a man to complete her because she is already whole. This kind of inner work is not glamorous. It is not about manifesting or positive thinking. It is the brutal, often lonely, task of meeting your own demons in the dark. It is about acknowledging the parts of you that you have been told are unlovable and choosing to love them anyway. When a man's projection lands on a woman who has done this work, it simply bounces off, like a harmless arrow hitting an unbreachable shield. He may see a goddess, but she knows she is a woman, and that is more than enough. She knows her own strength and her own fragility, and she doesn't need his gaze to define her. She doesn't need his adoration, because she has her own. A man's projection is often the most visible symptom of his own unhealed trauma. He may have been raised by an absent father, leading him to seek a mother figure in every woman he meets, a woman who will finally give him the emotional nurturing he never received. Or perhaps he was raised by a narcissistic mother, and he now seeks a woman he can control and dominate, an act of subconscious revenge against the woman who once held all the power. The specific form of the projection, be it the goddess, the mother, the whore, or the damsel in distress, is a direct reflection of his deepest wounds and his most unfulfilled needs. He is not seeing you, he is seeing his past, and he is trying to rewrite it with you as the lead actress. This is where your empathy must be tempered by a fierce self-preservation. It is easy to fall into the trap of becoming his therapist, his savior, his emotional crutch. You may feel a deep, compassionate impulse to heal him, to love him back to wholeness. But this is not your job. Your love cannot heal his wounds. Only he can do that. When you take on his emotional baggage, you are not helping him. You are enabling him. You are preventing him from facing the difficult, necessary task of looking within. You are, in essence, becoming a participant in his psychological drama, a drama in which you are destined to be a prop, not a person. The Stoics taught that we must not give away our power. Marcus Aurelius wrote of the importance of an inner citadel, a fortress of the mind that no one could penetrate. To become his savior is to hand over the keys to that citadel. It is to place your own emotional well-being at the mercy of his healing journey, a journey he may never choose to take. And in that exchange, you lose yourself. You become so focused on his needs, his wounds, his projections, that you forget your own. You become a vessel for his healing, but you remain an empty shell yourself. The most loving and compassionate act you can perform for both of you is to hold your ground, to refuse to participate in the drama, to see his projections for what they are, a cry for help, yes, but a cry that you are not equipped or obligated to answer. Instead, your focus must be on your own inner work. What is it in you that is attracted to this dynamic? What part of you finds comfort in being placed on a pedestal, even a fake one? What part of you is afraid of the unglamorous, difficult work of building your own self-worth from the ground up? These are the questions you must ask yourself. The mirror he holds up to you is not just a reflection of his own psyche, it is also a reflection of yours. It is an opportunity to see your own unconscious patterns, your own unhealed wounds, your own need for external validation. This is the great paradox of these relationships. They are profoundly painful, but they are also profoundly instructive. They are a catalyst for your own individuation, a call to a deeper, more authentic way of being. To detach from his projections is not an act of coldness or cruelty. It is an act of sovereign self-love. It is the wisdom of knowing that you cannot pour from an empty cup, and that your primary responsibility is to yourself. You are not a solution to his problems. You are not a salve for his wounds. You are a complete, whole, and autonomous human being. And you have the right to be seen as such, not as a symbol or an object, but as a person. The real victory is not in getting him to see you, but in seeing yourself so completely that his inability to do so no longer holds any power over you. Now, consider the counterpoint. What happens when a man encounters a woman who has already done this work? A woman who knows her shadow, who has integrated her own wildness, her own darkness, and her own light. A woman who is not looking for a savior or a project, but is whole in her own right. To a man still trapped in the old patterns, this woman is both terrifying and profoundly magnetic. She is terrifying because she cannot be placed on a pedestal. She refuses to play the role of the goddess, the mother, or the damsel. She is terrifying because her wholeness forces him to confront his own fragmentation. He cannot project his anima onto her because she is already the embodiment of her own soul. He cannot make her a fantasy because she is relentlessly, beautifully real. And yet, this is precisely what makes her so magnetic. For the man who is on his own journey of individuation, the man who is brave enough to face his own shadow, she is a mirror to his own potential. She is not a woman to be possessed or projected upon. She is a partner, an equal, a fellow traveler on the path to wholeness. He is drawn to her not because she completes him, but because she inspires him to complete himself. This is the profound difference between a relationship built on mutual need and one built on mutual respect. The former is a prison, the latter is a collaboration. It is in this space where two sovereign individuals meet that true, authentic love becomes possible. It is a love that says, I see you, not for who I want you to be, but for who you are, flaws and all. This is the ultimate prize, the culmination of all this inner work. It is not about finding the perfect man, it is about becoming the woman who no longer needs a man's perfection. It is about reaching a state of such profound self-possession that the approval or disapproval of others becomes irrelevant. This is the essence of true emotional freedom. It is the wisdom of a woman who has become her own source of validation, her own inner compass, her own unshakable ground. She no longer needs a man to define her worth or to tell her who she knows, and this knowledge is her superpower. It is the armor that protects her from the projections of others, and the light that guides her towards authentic connection. The journey is not without its difficulties. You will lose people along the way, men who are not ready for your wholeness, who are too comfortable in their own illusions, and that is okay. Let them go. Let them go with a sense of quiet grace and compassion, knowing that their inability to meet you where you are has nothing to do with your value. It has everything to do with their own. Your task is not to wait for them to catch up. Your task is to continue walking your own path, to continue doing the deep, difficult, and transformative work of becoming yourself. This is the most profound and courageous act a woman can perform. It is a love story that begins and ends with herself. Ultimately, your relationship with a man's projections is a test. It is a test of your own self-worth, your own boundaries, and your own commitment to your inner freedom. Do you have the courage to say no to the gilded cage? Do you have the strength to walk away from the fantasy and demand the truth? Do you have the inner resources to build your own citadel so that you are impervious to the storms of another's unintegrated psyche? The answer to these questions is the key to your liberation. And in that liberation lies the promise of a love that is not based on a dream, but on the raw, beautiful, and infinitely more powerful reality of two human beings seeing each other truly for the very first time. And so we arrive at the final destination of this journey, a place not of vindication or victory over another, but of sovereign peace within oneself. The ultimate act of self-love is not in forcing a man to see you, but in seeing yourself so profoundly that his projections cease to have any power. This is the great work. This is the liberation that no external force can grant, and no external force can take away. The moment his gaze, his adulation, or his condemnation no longer registers as a threat to your worth, you are free. You have built the inner fortress that Marcus Aurelius spoke of, a citadel of the soul where no outside opinion, no fleeting emotion, and no unintegrated shadow can trespass. This is the end of the fairy tale and the beginning of the mythic. The fairy tale promises a prince who will see you and save you. The mythic says, you are your own hero. The man who sees a goddess will inevitably turn on her when she becomes human. But the man who is on his own path to wholeness will not be drawn to the goddess, but to the woman who has become the master of her own kingdom. And he will not see her as a reflection of his own soul, but as a sovereign soul in her own right, with her own depths, her own history, and her own destiny. In that space, a true and equal partnership becomes possible, a union not of two halves, but of two wholes. It is a terrifying proposition for a man still mired in his own childhood, but for the man who has begun to face his own shadow, it is the most beautiful and profound possibility in the world. Your journey is not about waiting for that man. Your journey is about becoming that woman. It is the work of an entire lifetime. It is the courageous act of choosing to love your own fate, your own wounds, your own history, to practice the Stoic philosophy of amor fati. To love the lessons you have learned from every projection, every disappointment, and every moment of emotional dishonesty. For in the crucible of that pain, you have found a new kind of strength. A strength that is not loud or demanding, but quiet and unwavering. A strength that knows its value and therefore does not need to prove it. A strength that can see his projections for what they are, a sign of his own inner torment, and respond with compassion, but also with an ironclad boundary. This is the final, profound shift. You cease to be a mirror for his reality and become the architect of your own. You are no longer waiting to be chosen. You are choosing yourself every single day, in every single moment. You are choosing to honor your intuition, to trust your discernment, and to walk away from any dynamic that diminishes you. This is not selfishness. This is survival. This is the sacred act of self-reclamation. It is a return to a state of profound innocence and power, a state that was stolen from you by a culture that teaches women to seek their worth in the eyes of others. Look at the woman you are becoming. She is not the fantasy on a pedestal. She is the warrior standing on her own ground. She is not the damsel in distress. She is the queen of her own domain, who needs no one to save her. She has faced her own shadow, embraced her own complexity, and found her freedom not in a relationship, but in the depths of her own soul. And in this freedom, in this profound and unshakable self-possession, she has finally become magnetic not to the boy who wants a goddess, but to the man who is ready for a woman. For she has become the ultimate prize, a human being who has become whole, and that is a love story that will last forever.